layer I'm now gonna name Pistol is ready to be added into that template guide document. So I'm gonna just lightly drag out this tab. I'll select the move tool. And now I'll go and drop and drag her to the top of the page. And even though we resized this document, this is still too large to fit in this area at the top of my page. So I'm just gonna drag in at one of the corners. And if you're not seeing those, I would encourage you to make sure that Show Transform Controls is selected when you have the Move tool active. So here she is, she's at the top. So we can always have this kind of straight version to compare all the perspective warps to. I may even make this a little smaller. And that hint return to accept the change. So this is just the beginning. Now we have to worry about applying 1 and 2 point perspective to this image. So I'll start by making a copy, and for me that's just Command J, and then dragging this image down. And this is where your bounding box is actually incredibly helpful, and I'll show you what I mean. So this bounding box really clearly shows me the perspective of my image, and I'm just trying to line it up so that the edges of this side of the bounding box fall in line pretty well with the lines that I've drawn here. And that's pretty decent. Maybe I want it to be a little more over, a little down. I'm just using my arrow keys. So I now want to apply 1 and 2 point perspective to this particular image. So a couple things that I could do. One, I could just start over here. Actually, I'd rather start over here. Changing my mind. I want to make it so that the lines of this bounding box are parallel to the leading lines I've created for 1 and 2 point perspective. And I'll show you how to do that. Making sure that I have this layer selected, I'm gonna go to the Edit drop down. I'm gonna go to Transform and go to Perspective. So immediately it doesn't look like anything's changed, but when you drag on your bounding box now, you should see that you're able to change the perspective of this quite extremely. So I'm gonna drag on the side that I want to go in, and I'm gonna try to slowly get her to line up with the perspective. And I may scoot this in just a tiny bit, but I can see that at least this bottom line matches up really well. I may need to drag in a little bit more on the top. And that looks pretty good. So if we wanted to keep repeating this, we could also do a second copy. Again, copying from the top layer that hasn't been edited. And I could start by making the image smaller at the beginning, just so I could have a little bit more real estate to work with. And again, it's nice to start with having at least one side lined up kind of well to some sort of point of intersection. I'll go Edit, Transform, Perspective, and then I'll drag in again to get this image to line up well. So both these images now follow 1 point perspective pretty well. So for 2 point perspective, the process is really similar. We're just going to be working from both sides, and I think I copied the wrong layer. There we go. So let's just start by lining this image up pretty well, maybe with like these, what do I want to do? How about there? There. So this time we're going to do the same basic process, Edit, Transform, Perspective, but we're going to be going in on this side. And if we want to be pretty dramatic, we could even do something like this and just copy this warped layer and go Edit, Transform, flip horizontal to just have these two figures kind of giving each other the hairy eyeball across the perspective line. So we could also do different variations of this, smaller variations. I'm again going to try to copy my initial straight perspective version. So again, you're always just trying to have one corner that lines up pretty well with some of the, with at least two lines. So I'm going to do that here. Maybe I'll even start over here. And then again, do edit, transform, perspective, go in on this side. So this is how you will complete your 2 photographic perspective studies for this process journal. To turn it in, I would encourage you not to save it as a Photoshop document. Well, I would encourage you to save it as a Photoshop document for yourself and turn in a different file type. So I'm just going to save this and we'll say process journal for photo 1. You'll eventually do 2. And to save it as a Photoshop document in case you ever want to re-edit it, this will be really helpful to have. Once you have that Photoshop document saved just for you for insurance, go to Save As, and I'm just going to delete the PSD from the top here and save this as a JPEG instead, because that will be much easier to turn in. And it's saying it's going to replace it. That's fine. Perfect. So now if I go to my Finder window and to Desktop, I should see that I have this Process Journal Photo 1. It's a JPEG image, and it's relatively small. And this is what you could print out. This is what you could send over the internet to be printed. If you're printing directly from your laptop, printing from the Photoshop document is completely fine. So that's how you'll do this for both of your photographic perspective studies. Yeah, that's it.